Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this nice fall brisk evening that we've got. I really appreciate you taking the time to come out. It's so nice to be in a room full of others. That is not a common thing, or hasn't been a common thing these past years, year and a half or so. I want to take a moment just to say a few words, but then we'll get quickly to what we're really here for, which is enjoying Lyla June's performance, which is going to be amazing. So really appreciate you guys being here. President Nelson wanted to be here this evening to do the main introductions, but he had to be pulled away for a family health concern that's not too pressing, but he needed to be there and couldn't be here. So he sends his regards, and he knows that you're all in for quite a treat tonight. Let's see. This is Catawba College's An Evening with Lyla June, Indigenous Worldview and Restoring Right Relations. The event is made possible for us through a joint partnership with the Equity, Diversity, Justice, and Inclusion Task Force and the Center for the Environment. It's a great bridge between the social and the ecological. I'd like the edgy membership that's in the room to just stand really quickly and so folks can see how students, staff, and faculty, we are strong. We're about 35 strong here at the college and really doing some good moving and shaking of some nice institutional improvements. I'd also like the crew of the Center for the Environment to stand up. We also have some good student staff bridges there as well. Jay, Willow, Dustin, yeah, Josh. So really, really awesome that we've got some mighty powerhouses working on some good change making here at Catawba College. And the important work that they do is really advantageous to all of us. And we really appreciate EDGI and the Center for helping to sponsor this evening tonight. As some of you know, Catawba College finds itself in and upon a landscape that forms part of the original territories of the Saponi, the Catawba First Nation, and the Lumbee. This historical relationship, in particular with the Catawba First Nation, is reflected in our institution's name and is becoming an increasingly important contributing perspective to the operational culture of the college. There will be more to come on the recultivation of this relationship as the year unfolds, so please do stay tuned to that. We're so incredibly fortunate to have Lyla June Johnston here with us tonight. I know that you all have read her bio, which was a part of the description of the event, so I won't repeat that information here, but I will tell you a few other things that you can contemplate and that will complement what you have read about her. Lyla June is a tremendous voice for justice. She has come to find that her journey is interwoven with the journeys of others that she finds along her path. This path is one of uplifting, empowerment, and nourishing sustenance. Uplifting because she brings voice to those more marginalized and uses her platform to ensure those voices are heard. Empowering because she is unapologetically strong in her indigeneity. This inspires and helps others to find their own agency and identity in the complex web of our societal challenges. Lyla's path is also one of nourishment that sustains, because not many are able to blend the diverse arts associated with music, poetry, storytelling, and scholarship with messages relevant for the youth, relevant for our elders, and all those in between. I first came to hear Lyla some years ago and was immediately moved and knew that I wanted more and more people to experience her wisdom. You will be inspired tonight, I have no doubt. Thank you for taking the time to join us in community this evening to appreciate and better understand restoration, renewal, resilience, and reprieves. Without further ado, Lyla June, the stage is yours.
Hey. So happy to be here. I feel very, very lucky and overwhelmed by the amount of interest in my people's history. And I know many of you in the audience are identifying as indigenous to this continent as well. So our people's history, our people's issues, our people's culture. So it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful that you would all come out tonight and try to weave these bridges and weave these right relationships. Yeah, I wasn't expecting this, so thank you. I'm going to introduce myself in my mother tongue before I start, just to honor my ancestors. So, yeah. Ya'at'eh. That's how we say hello. You're welcome to try to say it. Ya'at'eh. Yeah, good job. Ya'at'eh. It means hello, but it really means a lot more. One of my elders told me that Ya comes from Ya'at'eh, which means the universe or the sky, which is also a being. It's like a father figure to us. And At'eh comes from At'ed, which means little girl, but it's also one of the words for the earth. Because sometimes she can be a mighty mama, and other times she's a precious as a little girl. And we were taught to walk upon her and treat her with as much care and gentleness as you would a little girl. So when you say Ya'at'eh, you're really bridging Ya'at'eh, the universe or Father Sky, with At'ed, Mother Earth. So when you say Ya'at'eh, you're bridging the sky and the earth. And you're saying, wow, look where we get to live, you know? It's fascinating. It's actually very phenomenal, really, that we get to be here, breathing this oxygen, getting to view the trees, getting to view the butterflies, getting to view the soil, getting to have this experience for a brief time as human beings. And we noticed, as Diné people, we're very observant, that all life sprouts where the sky and the earth meet. Where the sky and the earth meet is this magical place. This place between something and nothing. And that is the place where creation happens for this planet. So when you say Ya'at'eh, you know, I could say, translate it as hello. But it really means like, it's that kinship. It's that excitement that we get to have this experience together. Then we usually say Ya'at'eh shik'eh, sheh meaning my, k'eh meaning kin. We're taught to never say, oh, hey, Bill, or hey, Johnny. We're supposed to say, hello, brother, hello, uncle, hello, grandfather. Even if they're not your biological grandfather, to see each other as family. K'eh. It's all encapsulated in that little syllable of k'eh. Ya'at'eh shik'eh. Hello, look where we are, my relatives, my family. Ya'at'eh shidne'eh. Ya'at'eh shidne'eh. What does sheh mean again? My. All right, cool. So Ya'at'eh meaning look where we are. Sheh meaning my. Diné means my people. My grandmothers always taught me to see every single person as my people, no matter what skin color they had or what language they spoke or where they were from, to have that commonality and to fight for everyone as much as if they were your people. And she noted, this is actually a Lakota grandmother, noted that, you know, we all have the same color palm. We might have different colors of skin, but our palm is this fleshy pink. You know, you could almost see the blood coursing. And she said, you know, this is our common humanity. And obviously it's not exactly the same, but it's that commonality, it's that place where we are connected, that palm. So when I say Ya'at'eh shik'eh, greetings my kin and my family and my people, That's what I'm saying. Then we say Tsétsêhéstâhese ninishlan. So Tsétsêhéstâhese ashihindeshi belagana edashanali. Diné bakea dash denashan. Akwit ego dineast aninishlan. So what I'm doing there is I'm just explaining my clans, where I descend from, who I am. So our first clan is from our mother. In American culture, you get your last name from your father. In our culture, you get it from your mother. We are very matrilineal people. The women are the leaders. And there's really no qualms about that. It's not a big deal. It's like, yeah, of course, the mothers. Who else would we turn to for decision making than the ones holding the babies? Very natural for us to honor the mothers because they have this innate connection to what the next generation needs, and they are creators themselves, and they have that really profound connection. So if we are a society that is here to serve and protect future generations to come, who should we talk to but the mothers of that generation? So my first clan is Tsétsêhéstâhese, which means the black charcoal streak division of the red running into water clan. And yeah, that's my mom's clan. She got it from her mom got it from her mom, and so on. And all of my children, both of my sons and my daughters, will be Tsétsêhéstâhese people. Tsétsêhéstâhese, my father's clan, which he gets from his mother, is Southern Cheyenne, which I don't know as much about that part of me as I would like to, but I'm learning as much as I can. His mother was from Anadarko, Oklahoma. He grew up in Dallas, my father. Tsétsêhéstâhese, then you introduce your mother's father's clan, third, which is the Salt clan of the Diné. And then your father's clan last, which is Bilagana, meaning the European clans. So I have a lot of Scottish and Scandinavian in me as well. And so, yeah, that's a translation and how we always start as Diné people. Now, Diné people are indigenous to what is now called New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, and Utah. But this place has much older names than that. We call it Diné Bakea, the people's land. And our Pueblo relatives, maybe you've heard of them, beautiful communities living along the Rio Grande River in New Mexico. They have other names for that land as well, and many different nations. We're in that place for a very long time. In fact, they just found a 23,000-year-old human footprint in New Mexico and published those results last month. Very exciting news, because we have now formally, forever, disproved the Bering Strait theory once and for all. We've been trying to say it for years. We're like, that's not where we came from. We've always been here. And we're so grateful that this footprint was found, because it affirms our science. It affirms our oral history. It affirms what we've been trying to say all along, that this is an old place. This is an old, old place. And things have risen and fallen here long before Columbus was born. Beautiful things, even right here where we're sitting. Incredible, vast civilizations of indigenous peoples. And one thing my elder asked me to share with you all is he said, you know, people think that just because there's no pyramids and there's no aqueducts and there's no evidence of large civilizations, that there were no people here. He said, but our people worked very hard not to leave marks on the ground that you could see hundreds of years later, because we knew if you did that, you had done something disrespectful to the earth. And so he said there were vast civilizations and societies, I like to call them eco-societies, that were densely populated right here where we're sitting, that we would have no record of, aside from, like I'm finding in my doctoral research, my Ph.D. research, except for a lot of fossilized pollen records, we can see very clearly that this whole place was a food forest, and that food forest didn't just happen by accident. So anyways, so grateful to be here. I have a hard time figuring out what I am most days. I am a musician. I'm a poet. I'm a PhD student. I'm a candidate now. Finally passed my comps. Woo! Yeah. And I'm a community organizer. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm an auntie. Not a mother yet, but one day. I really, though, what it all boils down to is just like so many of us here, I just want to help. And a lot of days don't know how, but I really want to help our people. When I say our people, I mean all people. I want us to be healthy again. So much pain in this world, so much division, so much confusion. So my goal, whether it's poetry or fossilized pollen research or whatever, it's always to heal to the extent that I can, and still have a lot to learn. But yeah, I do want to do some music, especially because there's young people here. And yeah, I wanted to teach you guys how to beatbox too. So maybe you already know. But I like to interweave music with my speeches. So yeah, let's start with that. So okay, there's about 3 main elements from what I understand to beatboxing. So number 1 is like this. It goes like a horse, kind of. So can you guys do that with me on the count of 3? 1, 2, 3. Oh, good job. Good horses. Okay, the second one is kind of like a tss, like a sound. So it's kind of the roof of your mouth. So on the count of 3, let's all try that. 1, 2, 3. Tss. All right. All right. So let's do the first one again. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay, and then let's do like a it's in the back of the throat. Like you're calling your horse. Yeah. No cheating. Oh, we have to have everyone on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. So now let's try like a. So 1, 2, 3. Ooh. Ooh. It's about to get real in here. Woo. All right, now let's try a. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now let's put those two together like a. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. All right. All right, now try this. No? Okay. No takers? I'm looking. Okay, someone's trying. All right. All right. We were all given sacred duties to this land. Take care of Mother Earth and she will help you understand that everything we need is in the palm of her hands. No need to drill, mine, conquer, or extract. With faith in the Creator, we will blaze a brand new path. When we let go of fear, the greed turns into laughter. Unity of all people, that is what we're after. Cruising down the red road with sweetgrass on my dashboard. Used to drug and drink, but now I'm sober, now I'm faster. Sharp as a tacky told me, can't hold me back now. I just want to build a new world for our children. With love, prayer, and unity, this nation is rebuilding. Up from the ash of genocide and division. Red, black, yellow, white as one, that's the vision. Every race participates in this new beginning. Sacred is the masculine and sacred is the feminine. Infinite, indigenous, continuous, deliberate. Nothing can stop the people once they got their intention set. Some people say that the land can be owned. Some people say that the land can be owned. Deep in our hearts, we know that isn't so, because we don't even own this flesh or this bone. We can't take it with us on our spirit's journey home. The only thing we own is the lessons that we know. So when we wake from the slumber to remember we are one beautiful people under one beautiful sun, we must also release all claims to the earth, because she don't belong to us. We belong to her. Mother Earth was meant to be a place where we could learn. We pray to Tsétsêhéstâhese for a blessing on the world. We practice Satyagraha because violence doesn't work. We pray for those who are injured and those who injure. We pray for those who are injured and we pray for those who injure. Unconditional prayers for the whole wide world. We sun dance year round. Yeah, we let the sage burn, because when we pray for the people, we will start to understand what it means to be true woman, what it means to be true man. Cradled in the arms of the sky and the sand, I'm just a strand in the tapestry of the master plan, because together there is nothing that we cannot achieve. Together there is nothing that we cannot achieve. Can I hear you guys do that? Together there is nothing that we cannot achieve. Together there is nothing that we cannot achieve. Together there is nothing that we cannot achieve. Find love, find healing, find unity. Honjon nahasli, honjon nahasli, honjon nahasli, honjon nahasli. Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge too, before I go further, that we are standing on the unceded homelands of the Catawba Nation, Ishwa Nation. And I think that's important to remember, because what most of us are taught growing up is that America just happened one day, and here we are, Americans. But in reality, the way indigenous peoples, generally speaking, would like the world to see it is actually, this is Turtle Island, and non-indigenous peoples are guests on this land. And when we come as a guest, instead of an entitled immigrant, then we can have a beautiful relationship. Because indigenous peoples actually, generally speaking, really want to be hosts of our guests. We actually want to be hospitable, and that is our nature. That is our culture. To be hospitable, to be kind, to feed others, to bring them in. That's actually what we always wanted. You always hear the stories, right, of people coming on the ships and native people greeting them with open arms and food and hospitality. And so if we could reframe from a sense of entitlement to a sense of tenderness and humility upon indigenous lands, that changes things. And one of the things that goes into this is, the word America. The word America comes from, as we know, Amerigo Vespucci, who was officially, commissioned to look, unfortunately, for people to enslave and for gold to extract. That was his official business. And so when we think about this land, it's so sacred. This land is so powerful. It's like that word, Tsétsêhéstâhese. It's like, look where we are. It's so profound. And so to name this land after a man who, I don't judge the man, I'm sure he had his own life that we can't judge. But his official business was extraction and exploitation of other human beings. That is not the spirit of kinship, of family. And so what we prefer we're trying to get this trend going, is Turtle Island. And Turtle Island comes from, some of you may know, anyone read Braiding Sweetgrass? A couple people. It's written by this Potawatomi professor from Syracuse University, and it's the #1 New York Times bestseller right now, which I find to be really cool. But anyway, she's talking about, she says in that story, in that book rather, that this land, we call it Turtle Island because of a creation story from one of the nations in the East. And the story is that Sky Woman, this is you could call it a myth, but it's more than a myth. She fell from the sky and she landed on a turtle's back. And she needed some dirt because she wanted to create land. And all of the different ocean animals were asking her if they could help her get some dirt. So like the fastest, biggest animals were going down into the water to get her this dirt, the whales and the really powerful animals, and none of them could go down deep enough to get it for her. And then who came along was Muskrat, this little humble, meek animal. And he said, I'll get you some dirt. And so he went down, 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 down into the ocean, down, 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 and he was running out of breath. But he said, you know what? I got to do this for the people. If I do this, something beautiful is going to happen. So he actually gave his life, and he come floating up, dead, but in his little hand, holding some dirt for her. And he gave his life so that we could have this beautiful place to live. And so she kind of magically created a continent with this dirt. And so even though, there's over 570 federally recognized indigenous nations in the US alone, and we all have different creation stories, we're okay with using that one as sort of the representative for this land because of what it symbolizes. It's not about extraction and exploitation. It's about selflessness. It's about courage. It's about humility. It's about the smallest, meekest one of us, being sort of, to never underestimate the smallest of us. They have power, And so, that's why we call it Turtle Island, long story short, or long story long. So I think it's really good to remember that we are guests on Catawba homelands. And what does that mean? I think what that means is we think about where we are. And we, a lot of my Ph.D. work is looking at the food systems before Columbus. That's sort of my specialty. What were people eating here? What were they growing? What did it look like? What were the land management strategies that were going on here? And what we find is it's amazing. Actually, it's huge landscape scale food systems. There's this mythology in America, as we call it, where indigenous peoples are like primitive cavemen and cavewomen. But what we're finding is anything but that. We're talking about vast communities, tightly organized, broadly organized, extensively managing huge ecosystems. And I won't bore you with all the examples, but I will give you just one. Right in Kentucky, we've pulled out core sediments, soil cores, and we can analyze the fossilized pollen 10,000 years back. And what we find is in this pond in Kentucky where we pulled this soil core, about 3,000 years ago, all of the cedar goes away, all of the hemlock goes away, and there's an influx of chestnut, hickory nut, black walnut, and oak, and sumpweed and goosefoot, all these edible plant species. And that pollen is sustained for 3,000 years until 1830. And then the chestnut disappears due to the blight because of mismanagement of chestnut forests by the American population. And so what we see is that the Shawnee, the ancestors of the Shawnee of Kentucky, managed this beautiful food forest for 3,000 years straight. And we also see an influx of fossilized charcoal, which indicates something that is actually pretty well known for the nerds who study that, that indigenous peoples were the first prescribed burners. We burned every acre of this continent routinely, such that, for example, the Miamia Nation, which is indigenous to Illinois, has a lunar calendar, and their September moon is called the grass burning moon, because every September they would burn the grasses. And that cycles nutrients. It transforms these expired plant tissues into ash, which go into the soil, bringing nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and also increasing the water filtration rate of the soil. And in its wake, sprouts up nutrient-dense grasslands. And who loves nutrient-dense grasslands but large ungulates like buffalo and deer? So you have your mast trees, your chestnut, your hickory nut, your black walnut. But then you also have your protein, your deer, buffalo. We didn't have to cage the buffalo. We just made a home for them. They came to us. So a lot of people think native nations followed the buffalo. No. There's increasing evidence, mounting evidence, that the buffalo followed our fire, and that the American grasslands, a highly endangered habitat, is actually sustained by human fire. And when the colonizers came, they thought, oh no, this fire is scary, no more burning. And you have Smokey the Bear now. No burning, no burning, no burning. And so yes, the California wildfires are in part due to the climate crisis, but they're also due to the prohibition and suppression of indigenous fire. And I promise you I'm not making this up. There's entire books written about it. And indigenous peoples upkept the California oak groves with fire for millennia. And so what you have when you don't burn is the fuel load builds up, it builds up, it builds up. Then add the climate crisis, you got drought, everything's dried out. Tinderbox, everything goes up in flames. So in Australia, when their fires were going, they handled it differently than the US. They thought to themselves, remember that time we outlawed all Aboriginal burning? Maybe that was a mistake. And they actually went to the Aboriginal communities and they said, hey, we got it wrong. Will you help us? And now there's a resurgence and a renaissance of Aboriginal burning in Australia. So I think we could stand to do the same in this country, to honor the sciences of indigenous peoples that flourished on these lands, and to rethink this idea that they were primitive nomads in scattered bands, running around, eating hand to mouth, eking a living out of the land. No, we were wealthy. We were entirely wealthy. One of my friends says, actually quoting Malcolm X, said, poverty is not in our genes. It might seem like it, you know, indigenous peoples now, my people living on average of $20,000 per year per household. It's our median income right now. But that's not how we always were. We were flourishing. And about 98% of indigenous peoples, they say, estimated, were wiped out in the first 100 years of colonization. So by the time people started writing history about our people, about our cultures, about our civilizations, we were already reduced to 2%. And then they started writing about us. Then they started talking about us. So all of the history books, and it's definitely by the time cameras were invented, we were not who we used to be by then. We had been reduced, obviously disease, but a lot of violence. I won't get too deep into it. I know there's children here. But a lot of hard things happened to Native people. And we were brought to our knees again and again and again and again. And I met a man the other day, and he said, I'm really glad Columbus Day is a thing. And I said, why? And he said, because Columbus led the way for America to exist. And I said, okay. And he said, I know there was a lot of bloodshed, but it was through that blood that America was able to be created. He was telling me this straight to my face, and I was like, wow. Okay. And then one of the things he said was very interesting, and I think it's actually a common belief, I'm realizing. He said, the reason Native people lost is because they were not as strong as Europeans. And I wanted to say, actually, y'all were pretty weak getting off your boats, and we fed you and kept you alive many times. But also, we didn't lose because we were weaker. We just didn't want to fight. That's not who we are. Sometimes we were forced to fight. Don't get me wrong, we had warfare in this continent way before Columbus was born. We had dysfunction for sure, but we learned from it. We evolved from it. And eventually most of our societies chose peace as a way of life. So yeah, I think that all of these things go into us re-understanding Indigenous culture and working together, like that word I said at the beginning of working together to heal this land, working together to heal the soil, heal the plants, heal the animals, heal the people. Each and every one of us needs healing on this land. And if we work together in the spirit of we can do that. We really can. And it will take some courage, and it will take some compassion, and it will take some patience with each other, right? But it's so worth doing for the children in this room. It's so worth doing. And so if we have a chance to really look at the natural history of this continent, we will see that there's actually beautiful universes and worlds that were not very well recorded, unless you're looking at fossilized pollen oftentimes, and other things too, but a lot of it has been fragmented and it's hard to find. But anyways, I'm gonna do a little bit more music. What time is it, by the way? I usually blab and then the whole time is up, and then 7:13. Oh, yeah. Wow, I did blab the whole time. Okay. I'm just going to do music then for the rest of the time. This one's called Boarding Schools, and it's just about my grandma. I went to Stanford for my undergrad, and I did that at the expense of learning my own culture. And I marveled at how, wow, Stanford University, one of the best schools, all of its libraries, all of its computers couldn't teach me my own language. The only place I could learn that was with grandma, And then my grandma couldn't really teach me because the boarding schools, some of you may know about, in the 1800s, they took our children, age 6 to 16, legally. We had to give up our children in the 1800s, early 1900s, to these boarding schools, and they were shipped off far away. Fortunately, many of them were thoroughly abused in these schools, and they couldn't speak their language. So my grandma says when she was in the boarding school, if she was caught speaking Diné, the Navajo language, she would have to write 100 times, I will only speak English, I will only speak English, I will only speak English, I will only speak English. And all of the interesting things I got to share with you about my language when we first started, that's all what was what's the word? Sacrificed. All of those teachings, all of that understanding was taken away. So that's kind of what this song's about. When I was a little girl in the schools, yeah, they had me fooled. They said your native culture, it ain't got nothing for you. And if you want success, get a gold star, be the best. So I went to the best school I could find, and I left my culture behind. When my grandmother was a little girl, in the boarding schools, yeah, they had her fooled. They said that her dark skin was original sin, and if she wanted to be saved, then in Jesus' name she prayed. So she went to college on a train, and she read her Bible every day. So when I have my little girl, she'll have everything she needs. She'll have a choice of who to be. She can speak her native language, and she can still love her neighbor, love the color of her skin, see the beauty that lies within, because we remember who we are, and that supremacy was alive from the start. So you can't cut this down, there's no stopping us now. Head held high, feet on the ground, elders' songs. We hear the sound, we hear the sound, we hear the sound, I hear the sound, we hear the sound, we hear the sound, I hear the sound, I hear the sound. So you can't cut this down, there's no stopping us now. Head held high, feet on the ground, elders' songs, we hear the sound. Thank you so much for holding space for that song. I know it's kind of heavy, but I think even just holding space for this song is really healing. And I know I mentioned well, they would force us into Christianity at the boarding schools, and so that's what the mentioning was. But I personally, actually, I really appreciate Christ, and I really appreciate what he stood for. And it's funny, they're so similar to Indigenous values. They're so similar. To be humble, to be kind, to be patient, to not do things for yourself, but to love others, you know. So it was interesting. That's why I said there, like, she'll be able to speak her native language, and she can still love her neighbor. You know, we can have it all here on this land, I do believe. I think we're going to do a Q&A somewhat soon. So if you have any questions, you know, think about them. I want to do a lot of more songs, but we'll just do a few more, and then I'll do one more at the very end. I don't have my capo though, so we're gonna do a very brief intermission while I run to the kitchen and get my capo.
I'll be the intermission person. Not as entertaining or exciting or knowledgeable. But aren't you guys having the best time? Isn't this exciting? Are we learning a lot? Yes? Are we feeling like we've got stuff to think about and ponder and be thoughtful about as we continue our days this week, next week, and on? Yes? Hey, well, that already makes my heart sing, so...
A lot of hair to manage. Okay, so this song is actually in honor of my European indigenous culture, because as as a half Native, half European woman, you have to kind of think about, okay, what about my other side, And I'm not perfectly half and half, but, I have quite a bit of European in me. My brother is actually my biological full brother, and he came out quite light-skinned. So I've always seen how, even though he and I are the same exact genetics, he was treated very differently. Because in New Mexico, it's to be white, you're kind of the minority, so it's a little different. And it's harder for him to fit in, too, to Native community. But in any case, I want to acknowledge, too, that so many of us in this room have Indigenous ancestors from this continent, whether we look like me or not, and I want to honor that. I actually am currently living in northern Alabama, and I love it because, whether people look black or they look white, I always say, so are you Native? And they're always like, yes, I am, da-da-da, and they name these nations. So it's so interesting how, the people are still here, and I think I'm the kind of person who's honor that. I'm not like, oh, you're not enough, you don't count. It's like, no, if you have one Indigenous ancestor, you are Indigenous to me. And you need to learn about it, learn the language, learn the culture, learn the homeland, the plants, the animals. I haven't even got into my whole rant about bamboo here, but river cane is such an important indigenous bamboo species. I'll just give you that teaser. We'll say more about that next year or something. But learn about your people's traditional foods. Know them and honor your ancestors by living in a good way. That's how I think it. And that doesn't mean we necessarily have the same experience as brown-skinned people living on the reservation who, but we have to honor we have certain privileges that they don't, perhaps, if we don't look like them or have their experience, but that doesn't make us less Native. And if anything, we can leverage our privilege to help those nations on the reservations. Okay, this song is about my European side. Normally I do a whole long explanation, but I'm just gonna sing it and hopefully you'll see what it's about. It's called Mamolad, which means motherland in Welsh. In the 1920s, if you were caught speaking Welsh in schools, you get a block of wood tied around your neck with the letters WN written on it. And that stood for Welsh not. And you could only get that block of wood off your neck if you caught another kid speaking Welsh. And this is how the British Crown tried to humiliate the Welsh language out of existence. And so a lot of us as European descendants, we actually have a lot of the same exact traumas that Native people have. And we don't always remember it or understand it. But this song's actually about the women who were persecuted as witches, burned alive, drowned alive, tortured alive. And how that not only harmed the women of our motherland in Europe, but it harmed the men who loved them. And so it was a double whammy, Killed two birds with one stone there by harming the women of Europe. You also harmed the mothers, the husbands of those women, the brothers of those women, sons of those women. So, anyways, here we go. 6 million women thrown to the flames. The library is burning. I'll remember their names. The first colonization of the human race didn't happen in America. It happened in the place of Mamulad, mother country, Magyarország, the people's land, Nasza ziemia, the people's soil. I hear you calling. We've been afraid to look at the past and see the truth that's there. But take my hand, let's walk the land now. You don't have to be scared. There's an ancient motherland that we have forgotten, and great-grandmothers burned at the stake for holding the earth in their hands, for holding the earth in their hands, for holding the earth in their hands. Persecuted as witches, warlocks and killers, but these were not evil people. These were Europe's healers. These were Europe's healers. They were healers. We descend from healers. And this old heart of mine, it weeps away for all of our ceremonies going up in flames. But feeling is healing, and these tears are falling like rain. Yes, feeling is healing, and this is why we remember their names. Yes, feeling is healing, and this is how I wash away the pain. So let it rain on this land. My mother's medicine lives in the earth, rising from the ashes as we remember. I can hear her songs running through my veins as my brothers blow on embers of old bard stories. Old bard stories. I will place my feet in the Tuscan streams to mend the tattered edges of my father's dreams. My father's dreams. I will not choose war. I will choose peace. Honor the ancestors that live inside of me. Live inside of me. Live inside of me. Live inside of me. Thank you all so much for holding space for these songs, these ideas, these histories, these stories. It truly is. If you're wondering, like, what can I do to help Native nations, this is it right here. To learn, to heal, to hear, to listen, and to connect, and to make those relationships again. There's a saying, in various indigenous cultures, that like we are all relatives, we are all related, and I think our task as human beings is and has always been to see each other's humanity and to see each other as a relative, to see each other as a sister, a brother, a sibling, a mother, a father, a grandparent, child, and to treat each other as such. That's the important part, to treat each other as such. And then outward, to see animals and plants as equal to us. That's the next frontier. We're still working on the human part. But once we get done with that, we really need to see, like, I have a dog, but he's my equal. You know, I remember the day I realized he's an angel in a dog's body. I was like, oh, I've been treating you like a dog this whole time. That's awkward. I was like, oh, you are like me. And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh, my bad. So, you know, they really are equal to us completely. And so are the trees. I think trees are smarter than we are, actually. So, you know, to really see everything as equal. I'm going to start talking at you. We'll take a few questions, and then I'll sing one more song to end. Does anyone have any questions? You're welcome to ask if you'd like. Yes. Yeah, yeah. And I do also want to honor the fact that I started out with a hip hop song, and that absolutely comes from Black culture. And I just want to really always be in solidarity with with Black liberation. I think that Black liberation and Indigenous liberation are absolutely two sides of the same coin, and all our liberation is wrapped up in each other. So I just want to say that. But I think that the most effective way to, did you say effectuate change or raise awareness? Raise awareness. I mean, okay, might be controversial to say, but I think to approach people when they're open, and to help people open. Because although we shouldn't have to coddle and mince our words to be able to reach people, if people are shut down, if they're closed, we're not gonna communicate. We're just gonna get farther away from each other. And so that's why humor is a thing that a lot of Native people use, because it opens us. It establishes that kinship. And to also walk, this is another controversial thing, to walk forward with forgiveness, to walk forward with love, even for those who don't understand how to be relatives to us, to walk with compassion and forgiveness. And as we fight for justice, which is absolutely important, to fight for justice with love in our hearts for our people and love in our hearts for our so-called enemies, to have that love for them and know that they're not winning either. You know, in any system where there's hierarchy, nobody's winning. Whether you're on top or bottom, it's no fun for anyone. In our souls, in the depth of ourselves. And so when we dismantle hierarchy, we're liberating everyone. And to remember that it's for everyone, even the oppressor, as it were. And so that's my take on it. But I'm sure everyone has important perspectives on that question too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I think first, if you're talking about a DNA test that didn't come back as native, you know, my cousin did one of those. She's literally my cousin. Didn't come up. And I'm like, are these DNA tests are they accidentally erasing Native people? Because she is Native, but it's not showing up. And I'm just like, what is going on? And so I think I don't know what it is. But in case, I just want to put that out there. But, you know, let's say there's someone who is fully European descent, but they feel a kinship with indigenous culture and it resonates and they get it. That's because European people are indigenous to Europe and they have a connection to, back in the day, goddess culture, chalice culture. Europe was like very similar to Native people not too long ago. We're talking like 3,000 years ago, which our brains have a hard time going back that far. But we kind of stop at like King Louis and Napoleon. But there's so much more to Europe than that. And I think the reason you resonate with Blackfoot culture, in my opinion, and the reason you connect with your Lakota godparents is because it's a human thing. You know, to be kind, to be connected to Mother Earth is a human thing. It's not a Native American thing. It's a human thing. And so you're just close to it. And so to address how do you be an ally, I'll give my story as quickly as I can. Diné people, we have a history of raiding Pueblo nations, stealing and trafficking women, stealing and trafficking children. That's not a pretty thing to admit, right? As Diné, that's why I said not all Native people were peaceful. We had war, we did things that weren't ideal, but we learned from it. And so what is my job as a Diné woman to Pueblo people? Whenever I speak in front of Pueblo people, I get on a knee and I say, I'm sorry. And I say, I'm sorry what happened to your people. And if there's anything I can do to uplift your elders and your children, I want to do it. And I have the great privilege of being able to do that very frequently to help Pueblo nations. And so that's my opinion, is that I'm not ashamed to be Diné in the face of Pueblo people. I see it as an opportunity to make things right again. And I get to be the generation that heals what my ancestors did. I get to be the one who gets to change it all, like alchemy, like a catalyst. It just transmutes pain and heartache to something beautiful, which is service and kinship to each other. I think that's exciting, actually. I often say reparations can be very fun. Some people disagree with me, but I think as a Diné woman, I have reparations to do for Pueblo people. So I raise money for their language schools. I love it. I think it's and whenever I give that speech, without exception, a Pueblo woman starts crying and says, whoa, no Diné person has ever apologized to me, ever. And it's a healing moment to be humble, to admit I had done even though it wasn't me, you know, my ancestors had done something wrong, and I want to be a part of making it right. Thank you for asking that question. Yeah, any other questions? I know there's probably a lot. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I had to fight for every Diné word that I know. I had to go and learn it. I hang out with as many elders as humanly possible, which is hard living in this other world where, you know, yeah. So also, of the 230 some indigenous languages still spoken in the US and Canada, only 30 of them are still spoken by the children. So we're in a really bad place with native languages. If the children aren't learning, it's a moribund language. They call it moribund. It's a dying language. So if the children aren't learning it, it might as well be gone. Doesn't matter. You could have 10,000 speakers of a language, but if they're all over 50, 60, and they're all passing away, especially with COVID, you might as well. So that's why we're racing. My generation's going to be the one to decide if these languages go extinct or not right now. And so we're racing to generate these language immersion schools where a child walks in, the only thing they hear the whole day is the native language, and they're instructed in that language. And that seems to be the only thing that generates speakers effectively. Everything else, the apps, you know, they're cute, but they don't actually generate speakers. So my dream is to have U.S. tax dollars earmarked for indigenous language schools, because the U.S. government destroyed these languages. I think they should have a part in rebuilding them. Yeah. So, anything else? I know we're out of time almost, aren't we? How are we doing? Yes, Josh. Yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah. And just for those who couldn't hear you saying his grandmother was sterilized in 1970s. Indigenous peoples, just like black folks, quite tragically were systematically sterilized in IHS clinics as part of the ongoing genocide, as recently as 1970, meaning they weren't able to have children thereafter. Uh, and Yeah, and there's actually boarding schools still operating right now. There's over 200 of them in this country right now. They're different. Uh, they're not as intense where it's like you can't speak your language, da, 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 but they're still like poorly funded government run schools where kids are not with their families. They have the lowest testing scores in the country, and on and on. But I think, yes, that's a big question. I think there's this thing called moves to innocence, where like we don't want to look at what we've done or what we're doing, so we kind of come up with creative ways to dodge accountability. Like, oh, that happened so long ago, that was so sad, darn, when actually it's still going on. It's like, oh, well, too late now, we can't do anything about it, but that's actually a way of dodging accountability. And I think the reason why most of America to this day dodges accountability to Indigenous peoples is because of the ramifications. If we were accountable, what would it look like? Everything would be different. And people aren't mentally ready for that yet. But we can help each other be ready for that in a safe way, in a kind way. For instance, we are proving now, just like the Bering Strait theory was incorrect, we are proving now that the horse was here prior to Columbus, and my friend just finished her Ph.D. on that. And so that's kind of what people are more ready for. They can handle horses and footprints, and so we're just coming through the side doors to get stuff moving so that soon we can, at least Canada and Australia have issued formal apologies. We haven't even done that in this country. Like, we can't even do that. It's just too hard, it's too scary, it's too much. But I think we can help each other inch closer and closer and closer, because until we do, these things will be ongoing. So yeah, I don't know if that answers. Yeah. What time is it? Sorry. One more question? Okay. It's so hard to pick. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's I really appreciate your people. Your people are amazing. So much beautiful things I've learned from my elders who tell me of stories about my people. Yeah. Well, I think it would be good to do a pilgrimage home, honestly, for all of us, no matter who we are. That is hard to do. It costs money. Sometimes it's cost preventative, on and on. But if you can find a way to do it, just being on the land of your ancestors is really important. I went back to Europe. That was so important for me to go to the sacred sites in Devon, England. I had to go there, and I felt the ancestors. So that's one thing. And yeah, I do falter. I don't know my language. I know Spanish. How crazy is that? I can learn Spanish in college, but I don't even know my own language. There's not the institutions set up for it yet, the way that there is institutions set up for Spanish. So yeah, I falter, and that's actually why I'm trying to move closer to home to, give myself a chance to soak in the culture more. But I think for your case, affinity groups, for lack of a better word, there are so many folks from Guatemala in this land now. or maybe from neighboring areas, Yucatan, Chiapas, those areas, and people who have been systematically disconnected from their indigenous roots to come here. And I think getting together and doing language classes, there are resources available online to learn Maya, the numerical systems, like study groups, I think could be really helpful so that you're working together to do what you can, because you might not be able to be immersed in it the way your folks are at home, your friends and family back home. But you can do what you can do, and any little step is important, I think. So, yeah. Okay, I'm going to do one more song, and then I think we're going to wrap up. I'm so happy to be here with all of you, and thank you so much for, holding space. I also think it's hilarious that I'm the one here fielding all these questions, because probably so many people in this crowd could answer them too. But I will try the best I can. Okay, so this song is just for all of us, for all of us to reclaim who we are, no matter who we are. All right. Indigenous people, shine your light, we are equal, yeah, yeah. I remember the days when our prayers were illegal. I remember the days when being Indian was lethal, oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had a rough past, but get ready for the sequel. Get ready for the glorious comeback of our people, yeah. Rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I could feel it in my heart, can you feel it in your blood? I could hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. With forgiveness as my bow and my prayers as my arrows, pull it back and let go. I watch them fly like sparrows. Have hope, have hope. With compassion as my shield and faith down to my marrow, I will walk the pollen path even when it gets narrow. Yeah, yeah. Resurrect, yes, you can bet that we seen the single mama raising children on the res. We seen domestic violence tear apart what we have left. We seen the alcohol take it all and leave us dead. We seen the children take their own lives when they can't take the dread anymore. Can't take the dread anymore. No, we can't take the dread anymore. No, I won't take the dread anymore. Yes, it's a war, but we seen it all before. And now we know we can change it, 'cause that's why we were born. We know we are the ones that we have been waiting for. Yes, we are the ones that Grandma has been praying for. So rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I could feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I could hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. Pueblo hermoso, levántense, es nuestro tiempo. No tienes que esconderte más, porque ahorita es nuestro tiempo. This next verse is in Spanish to honor all the indigenous peoples who live south of the imaginary border that has divided a continent that was once very much connected. And even though Spanish isn't their indigenous language, a lot of the relatives down there speak it, so I'm just speaking to them. Mujer indígena, tú eres tan sagrada y traigas medicina de tu suelo todavía. A pesar del abuso de tu cuerpo y tu tierra, respetamos tus ancestros y la suya cultura. Hombre indígena, tú eres honorable y yo veo la fuerza que todavía sobrevive. A pesar del abuso de tu raza venerable, yo respeto tus ritos, tus danzas, tus padres. Guerreros del amor y guerreros de la paz. Sí, no vamos a escondernos más. We are warriors of love. We are warriors of peace, and we will not hide ourselves anymore. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. Yay. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And my hope with all of this is not to, it's funny, you know, this stage has me like higher and I don't like it. I feel like my goal in this talk is to reflect to you how beautiful you all are. And I hope I did that. I feel very equal to all of you. Okay, thank you so much. Have a great night.